The spiraling chaos of the Kuron Nebula glittered like shattered glass, its violent energy storms masking a vast network of trade routes. At its edge, the United Stellar Alliance, USA, a coalition of over 50 human-controlled star systems, maintained their frontier outposts, quiet sentinels of order in a lawless expanse. For decades, humanity had prospered in relative peace, forging alliances, building technologies, and expanding their reach into uncharted galaxies. Commander Talia Ven stood on the observation deck of the Eidolon, a sleek warship stationed at Kuron Outpost Alpha 7. Her gray uniform bore the insignia of the Stellar Alliance fleet, a reminder of humanity's growing dominance. But her expression betrayed concern. The reports had been escalating, entire trade fleets vanishing, distant colonies going dark, and strange anomalies reported across the fringe systems. "Ma'am," said her Lieutenant Elias K as he approached, "we've received another distress signal from the Atheron cluster. Same as the others, short transmission followed by silence." Talia frowned, her sharp green eyes narrowing as she turned to the young officer. "How many now?" 18 in the last 2 weeks, Elias replied. "No survivors, no wreckage, just nothing." The Atheron cluster had always been a contested region, its resource-rich systems coveted by multiple factions. But this was different. This wasn't territorial disputes or pirate raids. This was something else. "Is there any pattern?" she asked, her tone sharp. Elias hesitated. "That's the strange part. The attacks don't follow any predictable logic. Industrial colonies, research outposts, even mining drones. Whatever is behind this, it doesn't discriminate." Before Talia could respond, the room dimmed and an alert blared through the ship. A holographic image materialized before her, a transmission from Admiral Lorian Aris, head of the Stellar Alliance fleet. The older man's face was weathered, his silver hair cropped close, and his piercing gaze betrayed both exhaustion and resolve. "Commander Ven," the Admiral said, his voice grave. "You're being reassigned. Effective immediately, the Eidolon is to leave the Kuron Nebula and rendezvous with Fleet Command at Nova Citadel." Talia's stomach tightened. "Sir, with all due respect, we're barely containing the situation here. The attacks in the Atheron cluster—" "I'm aware," Admiral Aris interrupted. "And I assure you what's happening in Atheron is connected to the reason for your reassignment." Talia exchanged a glance with Elias. "Connected how, sir?" The Admiral leaned forward, his voice dropping. "We've identified the source of the anomalies, and we're not the only ones investigating. Multiple alien factions, ones we haven't heard from in centuries, are converging on the same location. Whatever it is, it's significant enough to force long-standing enemies into uneasy alliances." The revelation hit Talia like a physical blow. For over a century, humanity's ascension had gone relatively unchallenged. Sure, there had been skirmishes and rivalries, but nothing that suggested the other galactic civilizations viewed them as a threat. This was something different. "Sir," Talia said, choosing her words carefully, "are you suggesting that humanity is being targeted?" Admiral Aris met her gaze, his expression grim. "I'm suggesting that humanity has been underestimated for too long. And now, someone, or something, has decided to correct that oversight." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Talia and Elias in stunned silence. As the Eidolon prepared for departure, Talia reviewed the limited data available on their destination, System Theta 47. A remote sector deep within the galactic core, it was largely unexplored due to its unstable spatial anomalies. Yet now it seemed to be the epicenter of something monumental. "What do you think we're walking into?" Elias asked as they stood on the bridge, watching the nebula shrink behind them. Talia's jaw tightened, something that scares even the most ancient civilizations in the galaxy. And if it scares them... Her voice trailed off, leaving the implication hanging. As the Eidolon approached System Theta 47, its long-range sensors detected a massive armada. Ships of every shape and size, representing factions long thought extinct. At the center of the armada loomed a colossal structure, its surface alive with shifting lights and incomprehensible patterns. The message was clear. Humanity's rivals had come prepared. But what were they guarding or fearing? What secret lay hidden in Theta 47, and why was humanity being drawn into its orbit? The Eidolon dropped out of hyperspace into the void of System Theta 47, its sleek hull cutting through the darkness like a dagger. The bridge was silent, every officer's gaze fixed on the holographic display that projected the scene unfolding ahead. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of ships hung in formation, their outlines glowing faintly in the dim light of the starless sector. Some vessels were sleek and angular, their hulls etched with bioluminescent designs. Others were brutalist constructs of metal and spikes, bristling with weaponry. "By the stars," Elias muttered, breaking the silence. "That's not just an armada. That's a war waiting to happen." Talia stepped closer to the display, her sharp eyes scanning the chaotic tapestry of ships. Her fingers tapped commands into the console, bringing up a list of identified factions. The names scrolled past like a roll call of nightmares, factions humanity had encountered only in the margins of galactic history. The Silthari Ascendancy, a species of crystalline beings known for their telepathic hive mind. The Vector Dominion, a brutal empire of cybernetic hybrids who had vanished centuries ago. Even the Zivkri Syndicate, infamous for the Thier biological war machines, had sent their monstrous ships. And at the center of it all loomed the colossal structure Admiral Eris had mentioned. A sphere that dwarfed even the largest battleships, its surface alive with shifting, fractal-like patterns. "Is that a station?" Elias asked, pointing to the massive object. Talia shook her head. "No, stations don't ripple like they're alive." The scanner operator, a young officer named Ziri, turned in her seat. "Commander, the energy readings coming from that structure, they're beyond anything we've ever seen. It's like the fabric of reality is bending around it." The hum of the Eidolon's engines filled the bridge as everyone processed the implications. Talia's mind raced. This wasn't just a gathering of factions vying for power. This was something bigger, something far more dangerous. "Communications," she said sharply, turning to her comms officer. "Any signals coming from the structure?" "Dozens, Commander, mostly encrypted, but..." The officer hesitated. "There's one that's open. It's being broadcast on every known frequency." Talia exchanged a glance with Elias. "Let's hear it." The bridge fell silent as the audio crackled to life. At first, it was just static, punctuated by faint, indecipherable whispers. Then a voice emerged, deep, resonant, and distinctly alien. "To those who seek the heart of Theta, beware. The gate does not open lightly. Only the worthy may cross." The message repeated, its ominous tone sending a chill through the crew. Talia's mind lingered on the phrase, "the heart of Theta." What could possibly warrant such a gathering of power? And why did humanity, still considered young and fragile by galactic standards, find itself dragged into this theater of war? Elias broke the silence. "So what's the plan? We're outnumbered, outgunned, and clearly out of our depth." Talia gave him a wry look. "Thank you for the optimism, Lieutenant." "I'm just saying," Elias continued, gesturing to the hologram. "If they're here for the same thing, why haven't they started tearing each other apart?" "They're waiting," Talia replied, her voice grim. "But for what, I don't know." As the Eidolon drifted closer, a sudden alert flashed across the display. One of the factions, a formation of jagged black ships that could only belong to the Vector Dominion, broke from the Armada and moved to intercept. Their ships emitted a low, pulsing energy field that disrupted nearby scanners, their angular silhouettes exuding menace. "They're hailing us," the comms officer said, her voice tight. "Put it through," Talia ordered. The screen flickered, and the image of a cybernetic being filled the display. Its face was a grotesque blend of flesh and machinery, its voice a mechanical growl. "Terran vessel, you are trespassing in restricted space. Turn back or be destroyed." Talia stepped forward, her voice firm. This is Commander Talia Ven of the Eidolon, representing the United Stellar Alliance. We're here under orders to investigate recent anomalies. We mean no harm. The Vector representative tilted its head, the mechanical whir of its servos audible even through the transmission. The heart of Theta is not for primitives to claim. Leave now, or your species will face annihilation. The line cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence once more. Elias broke it with a low whistle. "Friendly bunch?" "They're testing us," Talia said, her tone sharp. "They're trying to gauge our resolve." "Orders, Commander?" Elias asked, his hand hovering over the weapons console. Talia's jaw tightened as she stared at the shifting mass of the core nexus, the so-called heart of Theta. Whatever was inside that structure, it was important enough to draw the galaxy's deadliest factions. And humanity couldn't afford to show weakness. "Hold position," she said finally. "Let's see how far they're willing to push." As the Eidolon held its ground, another alert flashed across the scanners. An unregistered vessel emerging from the void. Its design was unlike anything recorded in galactic databases, its hull shimmering with an eerie, shifting light. The question wasn't just what it was, but why it had arrived now. Had another player entered the game, or was it something far worse? The tension on the Eidolon's bridge was palpable as the unregistered vessel emerged from the void. Its sleek, otherworldly hull defied all conventional design. Instead of metal, the material appeared to be an amalgamation of shimmering energy and translucent crystal, refracting the faint light of the void in dazzling patterns. The ship seemed to pulse as if alive, its movements fluid and organic. "What the hell is that?" Elias asked, his fingers hovering over the weapons console. "Not Vector, not Silthari, not anything we've ever seen before," Ziri replied, her voice trembling. "It doesn't even register as matter, more like energy compressed into form." "Get me readings," Talia snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. She stepped closer to the holographic display, her sharp eyes narrowing. "And hail them. Let's see if they're here to talk or to kill." Ziri's scanner flickered erratically as it tried to lock onto the vessel. "Commander, this thing is scrambling our instruments. I can't even tell how many life forms are aboard, if there are any at all." "They're responding," the comms officer called out, his voice edged with fear. "Audio only." "Put it through," Talia ordered, gripping the console as the bridge fell silent. The voice that followed sent shivers down every spine on the Eidolon. It was layered and resonant, as if 100 voices were speaking in harmony. Yet the words were clear. "You do not belong here, Terrans. The threshold is not for your kind to cross." Talia's jaw tightened. "This is Commander Talia Ven of the Eidolon. We're here under the authority of the United Stellar Alliance to investigate the core nexus. Who are you, and why are you here?" The voice responded immediately, its tone neither hostile nor welcoming, but undeniably alien. "We are the Luminaries, the guardians of the threshold. Your species is not prepared for what lies beyond." "Prepared?" Elias muttered under his breath. "Prepared for what?" Talia held up a hand to silence him. "The Nexus has drawn factions from across the galaxy. Why now? Why would the threshold suddenly reveal itself after so long?" The voice hesitated. "Because the balance has been disrupted. What lies within the core nexus must remain contained, or all will be undone." Talia frowned. "If it's so dangerous, why not destroy it?" A deep, resonant hum followed, vibrating through the ship's systems. "The Nexus cannot be destroyed. It is the foundation of existence, a fragment of the Great Design. To tamper with it is to risk annihilation." Before Talia could respond, the comm line cut abruptly. The Luminary's vessel began to move, its elegant form gliding toward the core nexus. At that moment, a flurry of alerts lit up the Eidolon's scanners. "Commander, multiple factions are mobilizing," Ziri shouted. "The Silthari, the Vector, and even the Zevkri Syndicate, they're all converging on the Nexus." Are they reacting to the Luminaris? Elias asked, his hands dancing over the controls. Talia clenched her fists. Or maybe this was the spark they were all waiting for. On the holographic display, the battlefield began to shift. The intricate dance of positioning that had held for hours erupted into chaos. Ships moved to intercept one another, energy weapons lighting up the void in bursts of color. The Silthari Ascendancy deployed their shimmering crystalline frigates, while the hulking Vector Dominion warships charged forward with brutal precision. The Zevkri Syndicate's biomechanical horrors weaved through the fray, lashing out with tendrils of plasma and acid. Amid the chaos, the Luminaris vessel glided toward the core nexus unopposed, its form unbothered by the carnage surrounding it. The sight sent a chill through Talia. The nexus wasn't just a source of power, it was the prize, and the Luminaris seemed intent on claiming it. "Commander, what are our orders?" Elias asked, his voice tense. "If we don't move, we'll be left behind. But if we jump into that mess, we're not staying out of this," Talia said, her voice resolute. "Ziri, plot a course. We'll use the debris field to mask our approach. We need to get close enough to understand what the Nexus is and what the Luminaries are planning." As the Eidolon maneuvered through the chaos, Talia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The Luminaries vessel was far ahead, yet the eerie hum of its presence seemed to echo in her thoughts. Were they truly Guardians or something far more dangerous? And what had they meant by the balance being disrupted? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alert. "Commander, Vector ships are targeting us," Elias called out. "They must have noticed our approach." "Evasive maneuvers," Talia ordered. "Return fire only if necessary." The Eidolon twisted and turned through the battlefield, narrowly avoiding beams of plasma and missile strikes. The ship's shields flared as debris scraped against its hull, the battle intensifying around them. Every second brought them closer to the core nexus and to the truth. As the Eidolon breached the final defensive ring, an unexpected signal lit up their systems. It wasn't from the Luminaris or the Nexus, it was human. A voice crackled over the comms, one Talia hadn't heard in years. "Eidolon, this is Captain Kyle Roth of the Shadow Vanguard. You need to turn back. Now." The bridge of the Eidolon fell silent, the words hanging in the air like a thunderclap. Captain Kyle Roth. The name sent a chill through Talia's veins, one that quickly turned into a mix of disbelief and anger. Roth's voice carried a weight of authority, but beneath it was an undercurrent of urgency. "Roth," Talia growled, her hands gripping the console. "You're supposed to be dead." The voice on the comm didn't flinch. "A lot of things are supposed to be, Commander. But what matters is that you turn that ship around before you cross the point of no return." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Elias muttered, "This guy's supposed to be a ghost. What the hell is he doing out here?" Talia's jaw tightened. "Kale, you vanished 5 years ago. You abandoned your crew, your mission, everything. And now you're warning us off the Nexus? You'd better start explaining." 5 years, Roth replied, his tone measured but tense. "That's how long I've been here, watching, learning, trying to stop anyone from making the same mistake I did." "What mistake?" Talia demanded, her voice sharp. "What are you talking about?" Roth sighed, the weight of his words palpable. "The Nexus isn't just some artifact, Talia. It's a trap, a lure for those too blinded by ambition to see the truth. The factions converging here, they're not fighting for power. They're racing to open a doorway they don't understand. If they succeed, they won't just doom themselves, they'll doom us all." The words hit like a hammer. Ziri leaned forward, her fingers flying over her console. "Commander, I'm detecting a surge of energy from the Nexus. The rings around it are accelerating. Whatever it's doing, it's reaching a critical point." Talia's mind raced. "Roth, if you know so much, then tell me, what's really inside the Nexus? What happens if the doorway opens?" There was a long pause, and when Roth finally spoke, his voice was low and grim. "It's not a doorway, it's a lock. a lock holding something back. On the display, the chaotic battlefield came into sharper focus. The Luminaris vessel had reached the Nexus, its pulsing form merging seamlessly with the glowing rings. The factions around it seemed to sense the change, their maneuvers growing more desperate. Ships clashed in brutal dogfights, their debris scattering like falling stars. "They're trying to force the Nexus open," Roth continued. "But the Luminaries, they're not here to stop it. They're here to guide it, to ensure that what's on the other side gets through." Elias swore under his breath. "And what's on the other side? A new species? A weapon?" "What?" Roth's voice turned cold. "Something that doesn't belong in this reality. Something that doesn't care about life as we know it." The crew exchanged alarmed glances. Talia's mind worked furiously, piecing together the fragments of information. The Luminaries weren't guardians, they were shepherds, and the factions fighting to control the Nexus had no idea they were playing into a plan far beyond their comprehension. "Kale," Talia said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "If this is true, then we can't turn back. We have to stop it." Roth's response was immediate. "You can't stop it, Talia, not without making the same sacrifice I did." A sudden impact rocked the Eidolon, throwing the crew off balance. Alarms blared as Ziri called out, "We've been hit! Vector fighters closing in! 3 bogies on intercept!" "Evasive maneuvers!" Talia shouted. "Elias, return fire! Ziri, plot a course through the debris field. We need to reach the Nexus before it's too late." The Eidolon weaved through the chaos, its weapons firing in controlled bursts. Explosions lit up the void as enemy ships crumbled under their assault, but the path ahead was closing fast. The Luminaris vessel, now fully integrated with the Nexus, radiated a blinding light that seemed to pulse in sync with the escalating hum of energy. "Commander!" Ziri shouted, her voice strained. "The Nexus is destabilizing. If they succeed in unlocking it, the entire area will collapse into a singularity." "Then we stop them," Talia said through gritted teeth. "Roth, if you have a plan, now's the time to share it." "You won't like it," Roth replied. "The only way to shut the Nexus down is to overload its core. But doing that will destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers, including you." Talia's heart pounded. "The stakes couldn't be higher. And if we don't, then everything beyond this sector is at risk," Roth said grimly. "This isn't just a fight for the Nexus, it's a fight for the galaxy." As the Eidolon barreled toward the Nexus, Roth's voice cut through the comms one last time. "If you're going through with this, you'll need to access the failsafe. It's inside the Nexus, at its very core." Talia stared at the pulsating rings, her resolve hardening. "Then we go in, and we finish this." But as the Eidolon breached the final barrier, a new presence emerged, one that none of their scanners had detected. A ship, ancient and massive, dwarfing even the Luminaris vessel, materialized from the void. Its arrival sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield, and its intent was clear. It wasn't here to stop the Nexus. It was here to claim it.